It happened just minutes ago. A hush spread across Royal Watcher chats, social media threads exploded, and now the world waits for confirmation. According to multiple insiders, the palace under King Charles III has just formalized new restrictions that could drastically reshape the public identity of Meghan Markle. The headline alone is heartbreaking. Meghan may no longer be allowed to use her royal titles publicly. For a woman whose name once opened doors, red carpets, interviews, brand deals, this could be a devastating blow. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. But before we all draw conclusions, what does this really mean? And how did things get here? Buckle up, because the story behind this ruling, full of intrigue, shifting loyalties, and royal protocol, may change everything you thought you knew about modern monarchy and Meghan's future. Imagine holding a ticket to the most exclusive club in the world, a ticket that gives you prestige, access, and the power of a legacy. Then one day you wake up and you're told, that ticket? It no longer works for public events. That's the scale of what's being reported from Meghan. When she and her husband stepped back from senior royal duties in 2020, it was always understood they would forfeit the active privileges that come with being full-time working royals. They would no longer perform official royal engagements, would no longer draw on public funds, and would step back from the public face of the monarchy. But they retained their nominal titles, Duke and Duchess of Sussex. In the years following, that retention of titles turned into something more, for many critics and royal traditionalists, a loophole. According to a 2025 piece, Meghan is reportedly walking a fine line between legitimate use of her title and what some see as inappropriate leveraging of royal status in a commercial context. Now, reports suggest that the palace is ready to close that loophole once and for all. Recent speculation claims Meghan is facing a formal warning or new restrictions that would limit, or even eliminate, her right to use her royal titles in public engagements. Why does this matter? Because titles in the royal world aren't just labels, they're currency. They confer prestige, media attention, brand power. And suddenly, that currency might be devalued. So if you've ever wondered whether royalty still matters in 2025, the answer could be slipping through Meghan's trembling fingers. Let's rewind a bit. In 2020, when she and her husband officially retreated from the full-time duties of royal life, there was a negotiated agreement. Publicly. No more official engagements, no more using HRH, her Royal Highness, in formal contexts or receiving taxpayer funds. Privately and legally, titles remained. It was uncomfortable, but manageable. A compromise. Fast forward to late 2025, insiders are now saying that the tone has changed. The palace is reportedly telling Meghan that even using Duchess of Sussex, or any royal title, during public engagements or appearances is no longer acceptable. It is being framed as part of an effort to modernize the monarchy, streamline active royals, and prevent the perceived exploitation of royal status for commercial or personal gain. One expert quoted in recent coverage didn't mince words. Meghan is clinging to her royal title as she is aware that Prince William could revoke it once he becomes king. For Meghan, who has built a public and commercial life in California, with brand deals, media appearances, and speaking engagements, this isn't a small administrative tweak. It's a potential public relations and legal earthquake. The fallout. What could this mean for Meghan's brand and public life? In today's celebrity economy, a name can be more valuable than a job. For someone like Meghan, whose identity is deeply tied to her royal connection, removal of public title privileges could change everything. Without a royal title, media houses might not treat her with the same gravitas. PR value decreases. Paparazzi that once rushed for a Duchess-tagged appearance might slow down. Invitations that hinged on royal glamour may dry up. Meghan's brand already trades, in part, on her royal past. A duchess is a powerful label. Remove it, and companies may think twice about whether her name still carries enough weight. Some deals may be canceled or renegotiated. For a public figure, identity comes down to visibility and narrative control. Losing a title publicly means losing part of the narrative. It means having to rebuild, or risk fading into the background. If the palace closes this door, it sends a signal not just to Meghan, but to every former or non-working royal. Titles without duties may no longer be tolerated. The old understanding may quietly become obsolete. It's a storm of consequences and none trivial. For Meghan, it could mean redefining who she is, legally, publicly, and emotionally. But before you assume it's over, there's another layer. Inside the palace. Power, strategy, and the new royal vision. Why now? Why this moment? The royal institution is under pressure from public scrutiny, calls for modernization, fiscal limitations, and shifting values in a global age. Titles once handed down as a birthright can now be seen as outdated relics, especially when some title holders aren't performing traditional royal duties. Many insiders believe this shift in policy is part of a broader long-term plan under King Charles and the Circle. Stripping or limiting titles isn't unprecedented. Consider the recent example within the royal family, when titles and honors were removed from a senior royal amid scandal. That move was formal, structured, and carried consequences. For the palace, it's about control over image, relevance, and loyalty. The monarchy today must adapt to modern scrutiny, and for that, past privileges may no longer seem justifiable. From a strategic perspective, this isn't just about Meghan. It's a warning, a reset, a redefining of what royalty means in 2025. The palace seems to be drawing a new line between active royals and symbolic ones, with significantly different rules. But what kind of reaction will this trigger? And how does Meghan respond to losing the very part of her identity that many associates tied to success and recognition? The personal angle, what this means for Meghan on a human level. Behind the headlines, the flashing cameras, and the speculation. There's a woman whose life is about to change profoundly. Let's imagine that change. Meghan wakes up one morning. No guarantee that her name will turn heads. Invitations may slow. Some doors may close. The public events she used to walk into as Duchess might no longer roll out for her. Psychologically, it's a blow. Identity is tied to recognition. For someone who spent years crafting a public persona, balancing media, brand, motherhood, losing a title isn't just symbolic. It's personal. For her children, too, the ripple effects could be meaningful. Royal ties that once offered protection, attention, and prestige may become hollow. The sense of legacy, of belonging to a lineage, may shift. And for Meghan herself, it's a crossroads. Stay in the public eye as a former royal turned entrepreneur, or try to reinvent, to rebuild a new identity grounded not in inherited titles, but achievements, causes, and personal brand. This is a human story as much as a royal one. Of identity, loss, reinvention, and resilience. And often, those are the most compelling stories. Could she fight back? Legal moves, public relations, and brand reinvention. Is this the end of the story? Not necessarily. When stakes are high, people push back. And in Meghan's case, there are possible moves. Legal preparation. Reports claim Meghan is already consulting legal experts to understand whether she has a case to retain her titles or challenge the restrictions. Rebranding. She could lean into building a new public identity, one not tied to royal titles, but to her own values, work, public voice, and causes. Public relations strategy. A carefully managed PR campaign could reshape public perception, from disgraced Duchess to icon reinvented. Focus on substance over status. Instead of royal cachet, she could highlight her projects, advocacy, and real-world impact. But each path has its own challenges. A legal fight could ignite more scandal. Rebranding may fail if public interest fades. Reinvention demands resilience, discipline, and authenticity. The question becomes, does Meghan have the strength or the willingness to begin from scratch? Why this matters for the monarchy, the media, and the public eye. On one level, this is a story about one person. On another, it's a story about institutions, culture, and power. For the monarchy, this could mark a turning point. One where titles are decoupled from identity, where structural reforms change what it means to be royal. For the media, the narrative shifts from glamour and legacy to tension, reinvention, and real human drama. Reporters, photographers, and audiences may start to view former royals more like celebrities, with all the volatility that comes with that status. For the public, it forces a reckoning. Do we care about inherited titles? Or do we value authenticity, real work, and individual merit? It's a shift that could reshape public attitudes about the relevance of royalty in modern times. What could happen next? Scenarios to watch. The palace could release an official statement restricting title usage, making it clear that Meghan, and possibly others, must stop using royal styles in any public engagement. Meghan fights back, possibly through civil legal channels, arguing the titles are legally hers, or that removing them retroactively violates prior agreements. Meghan quietly adapts, removes public use of titles, rebrands herself as an independent public figure, focuses on her projects and causes. The move triggers a media firestorm, scandal, public outcry from royal fans, debate about tradition versus modernity, forcing the palace to navigate a public relations crisis. Each scenario carries consequences, not just for Meghan, but for the entire institution of monarchy and how former royals are viewed globally. At its core, this story reveals a harsh truth. Titles and privileges are fleeting. What lasts, identity, value, meaning, must be built, defended, and renewed. For Meghan, or anyone in her shoes, the challenge isn't just losing a title. It's defining who you are when the label is gone. It's about choosing whether you respond with anger, denial, or reinvention. For us as observers, it's a reminder that behind every headline, behind every title, there's a person, and often, the real drama. The real human story begins when the curtain falls. Watch for official statements from the palace or royal spokespersons confirming or denying the reports. Track Meghan's public engagements. Will her name appear as Duchess of Sussex or as plain Meghan Markle? Watch for legal filings or public announcements indicating a fight for titles. Notice how media outlets refer to her as royalty, former royalty, or regular celebrity. Observe shifts in her brand partnerships, public image, and how she positions herself moving forward. If you care about prestige, reputation, identity, this story matters. If you believe in reinvention, resilience, and the power of personal legacy over inherited titles, this story could become an epic test case. What do you think? Is this fair? Is it overdue? Or is it a betrayal of status for a woman who once stood by the crown? Drop your thoughts. I want to know your take. If this story grabs you, share it. Let others weigh in. Maybe together we'll get closer to the real truth behind royal titles, power, and what it all means for people.